The city is going to have the prettiest opera house in the state, and one of the prettiest in the entire South, proclaimed Lynchburg's The News on January 5, 1905. A century ago, in the twilight of the pre-electronic age of entertainment, the only way the shows and the stars could get to their national audiences was to travel, and most did. Lynchburg was a dynamic and affluent small city, a transportation and distribution center with a thriving manufacturing economy. Its civic leaders possessed both the desire and the means to enjoy the top musical and entertainment attractions of the day. This included having a first-rate opera house, a generic term denoting a legitimate theater. The prime mover in the building of the Academy was Richard D. Apperson, president of the Lynchburg Traction and Light Company, the streetcar line and supplier of electric power for the city. The new Academy of Music Theater was erected at the site of a tobacco warehouse at the northwest corner of Main and 6th Streets. According to the News, the Academy's opening night, February 1, 1905, was a decided success. As they are today, tickets were priced according to the star quality of the performers. When George M. Cohan, the Yankee Doodle Boy and King of Broadway, arrived with his troupe at the Academy shortly after the theater opened, front row tickets were a very expensive $2.50 each. When the great pianist Paderewski, who traveled with his own piano in his own railroad car, arrived in the Burg for the first time in 1909, tickets ranged from a not-so-low $1 to a stratospheric $3. When the world's most famous ballerina, Pavlova, came to the Academy for the second time in 1922 with an orchestra and her own ballet company, the price of admission was an unheard of $5 for a box seat down to $1.50 for the cheap seats in the balcony. For every local production at the Academy in those early years, there were perhaps 20 by professional traveling companies. The majority were the popular 10, 20, 30 shows, but Lynchburg saw more than its share of stars in a surprising variety of vehicles. On March 20th, 1910, The News could boast, "The Academy here has certainly been getting the better of Roanoke in a division of the good attractions coming this way recently. Several of the big shows that stopped here have passed the Magic City by." It seemed that the state of affairs at the Academy could have hardly been better than it was during the season of 1910 through 1911. Then, on the morning of April 20th, 1911, a fire gutted the Academy's auditorium. Immediately, speculation arose as to whether the Academy would be replaced. Fortunately for the cultural and entertainment life of Lynchburg, department store magnate Charles M. Guggenheimer stepped forward. Guggenheimer announced that a theater dissimilar from the old one and in every way its superior will be erected on the present site. This is the theater that presently stands. Upon the opening of the renovated Academy in December 1912, the News called the building an up-to-date theater of which any city 10 times the size of Lynchburg might well be proud. The gala benefit formal opening of the new Academy took place on Friday, December 13th, 1912, with tickets up to $5 for the best seats. The show was a play called The Perplexed Husband, starring John Drew, the most famous member at the time of an American acting family whose theatrical roots went back to almost a century. Commercial movie theaters had come to Lynchburg about the same time the first Academy had opened, but they were at first merely large rooms showing a variety of 1 or perhaps 2 or 3 real silent shows, sometimes with a piano accompaniment. As the Hollywood star system developed and the pictures got longer and their plots more complex, they began to underprice the 10, 20, 30-cent live shows at the Academy and took the place of many of them. During World War I, due to the U.S. government's requirements for transporting troops by train, the number of touring shows decreased somewhat, and there was an increase of movies supporting the war effort. After the war, silent movies continued to gain ground on live entertainment. Tickets for the movies were 25 cents for the orchestra and 15 cents for the balcony. Considering the inflation that took place both during and after World War I, it became increasingly difficult for live shows to compete with those prices. Despite all the movies, during the Roaring '20s, the live stars still kept coming to the Academy. Things were going reasonably well until the death of its longtime president, C.M. Guggenheimer, in 1928. The closing show of the Academy as a legitimate theater was in November of 1928. The Academy was back in service in April 1929 and served as a premier venue in Lynchburg for sound motion pictures. The Academy closed its doors for good in 1958, done in by television and the flight from downtown to the suburbs. In June of 1993, a giant storm blew off the roof of its stage house and left a gaping hole in its back wall. The remains of the stage house had to be demolished, leaving the inside of the theater exposed to the elements. On July 30th, 2003, it was announced that the boards of the new Friends of the Academy and the Lynchburg Fine Arts Center had merged, and the new entity would be known as the Academy of Fine Arts. The Academy of Fine Arts' goal is not only to create an arts center for education and performance in downtown Lynchburg, but to restore the historic theater to its former glory. The Warehouse Theater, at present, carries on the tradition of live theater until the restoration of the Academy of Music Theater building is complete. A crucial step was taken in that restoration with the completion of the old Academy's new, up-to-date stage fly tower. It contains the backstage requirement for large-scale theatrical productions and will be furnished with up-to-date technical equipment. With the subsequent renovation of its auditorium, the old theater will again become the Hill City's showplace, and the name Academy will once more represent the finest and certainly the most beautiful center for the performing arts in Central Virginia.